What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's be honest here. Reddit has been just having a meltdown over Battlefield 6 recently, so it's very hard to scroll through Reddit and find some interesting topics, but I actually found something which I completely agree with, and it's probably one of my biggest gripes when it comes down to Battlefield 6 right now. Of course, there are other things, and I'm going to make other videos about these topics, but this one kind of is making me a little bit sad moving into Season 1, and a bit worried about the future of what to expect going into the new year. But ladies and gentlemen, of course, before we go and dive on deep, if you guys are interested in more content like this, don't forget subscribing to that bell. Post twice here, once at 8 in the morning Eastern Time, and the second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, if you guys are interested in my live streams, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If you guys are interested, I'll link that channel down in the description of this video. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, before I go ahead and dive deep into one of my biggest concerns, I wanted to showcase to you guys a clip I saw on Reddit because, again, it's very hard to find anything positive, but this one was absolutely legendary. It was a clip by Mermexki saying, "This ain't even cinema anymore. It's straight up Mission Impossible." Let's go ahead and check out this footage. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you guys, this is why I freaking love Battlefield so much. The only in Battlefield moments are just absolutely legendary, and everybody always has to claim that Battlefield is such a milsim game. It's like, oh, you can't enjoy this game unless you're a milsim lover. Anybody who enjoys Battlefield only enjoys milsims. It's the complete opposite. Ever since the beginning of time, Battlefield has always been about that arcade flow. Of course, it was a bit more realistic than, something like Call of Duty, but it still had the most wild moments you would ever witness in your whole life, and it's what made Battlefield Battlefield, and things like this is what helps the game continuously thrive. Seriously, outstanding clip from this individual here, and really good piloting. I need to try to get my piloting skills up a bit more. I was pretty decent in 2042, but moving into Battlefield 6, that attack chopper, I'm having a lot of, problems here with making it feel smooth and fluent. It's very stiff and clunky for me. But I know it's just me because I watch others and they are just whipping around. So it's just a bit more practice that's required, but I'll get there at some point in time. But seriously, really solid clip. But ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive deep into the actual, real topic of today's video. I saw another post over on Reddit and it says, "This game launched with 7 maps, not 9. Let me explain." Let me start with I like the game. I've played Battlefield since Battlefield 4 came out. Number 1, Empire State and Manhattan Bridge are both Dumbo Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Bridge and Manhattan Bridge are right next to each other. They clearly had one full-sized Battlefield map that they chopped in half to make 2 small Battlefield maps and say they had 9 instead of 8. 2, the one map is so small it's only playable in team deathmatch, domination, etc. Not even big enough to play as a small rush map. This does not count. Equals 7, which is not enough. Now, to go ahead and begin, I don't completely agree with number 1, although I made a video about this in the past saying that I really wish that Empire State and Manhattan Bridge was combined together for one massive city map. That would have been really cool. At the end of the day, splitting it isn't too big of a problem for me. My biggest problem is that they split these maps and then they didn't bring it in operations. What missed potential? Basically, every single set of maps in this game has a theme to it, which would work perfect for the operation mentality. And it's not in the game. And they could put it in the game right here, right now. It would completely work. All they have to do is just a little narration to, give it some backstory, and they could easily make that function. But I gotta be real, I have a bad feeling, a gut feeling, that we're not going to see operations in Battlefield 6. It just is what it is. But I'm not too mad with Empire State and Manhattan Bridge being cut into 2 because they do basically serve 2 completely different purposes and gameplay styles that I don't necessarily hate. But the second point is 110% facts, and this is why I'm a tad bit concerned about some of the future content coming into Battlefield 6. There is a map in this game called Saint Quarters, and I'm sure over half of you guys have never even experienced this map. And it's not for no reason. It's only on the small style of modes, TDM, Domination, King of the Hill, so on and so forth. You cannot play it on Rush, Breakthrough, Escalation, Conquest, all of that stuff. It's irrelevant. You can't even consider hopping into the overall experience. It's not big enough. Talking about an actual map that's sized like COD, I see everybody making jokes about Empire State. I laugh at it. I don't necessarily agree because I like Empire State, but I laugh at it. It's still pretty funny. But let me tell you something. Saint Quarters is a true Call of Duty map. I'm not saying that as a joke. I'm not saying that to throw some shade. It's the truth. It is small, very minuscule, and as I stated, you can't play any of the actual Battlefield game modes on it. And in my personal opinion, it's a wasted map. We don't necessarily have 9 maps in the game. We only have 8 because one of the maps can't even be played on the core Battlefield experiences. I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm not trying to throw any shade. I'm not trying to, do any of that noise. I get it. Some people do enjoy the small modes when it comes down to Battlefield. The whole franchise. Some people do enjoy just hopping into TDM when they play Battlefield. But I'm just going to tell you how it is. Battlefield is not a game made for the small modes. Yes, it's nice to have them in the game, but Battlefield as a whole should never, ever, ever, ever be designed around small modes and small modes only. Game modes like Escalation is what we should be pushing towards. Modes that take the core formula of what this game is about, Breakthrough, Conquest, and shifting it, changing things around and adding more large-scale battles into the game, because guess what? I'm sorry to say, as I always say, at the end of the day, Battlefield is made for big team battles, vehicles, all-out warfare, chaos. That's what helps Battlefield shine. Nobody's hopping. You see, I have to stop myself from saying this because not nobody hops into the game just for small modes. I personally know a lot of people who hop into the game just to play, King of the Hill, Domination, stuff like that, the smaller modes. But the reality is you can enjoy that stuff, but that's not what Battlefield is, and Battlefield should not prioritize that over the rest of the content. They can go ahead and shrink down maps that we already currently have and put them in Domination and all those other modes, but there should never be a moment in time where you take a full, complete map and then put it only in small modes. Excuse me? That is the most backwards logic I've ever heard in a Battlefield game. They know those modes aren't their bread and butter. They know people are coming to this game for the big team battles. Why would you put together a map that is only supported on the small modes and not for the rest of the actual Battlefield experiences? And it worries me even further because a lot of these modes that are coming in within Season 1 are, once again, small modes. We're not seeing any new modes that are, shaking up the larger scale combat. Again, the only thing that we really saw was Escalation that came at launch, but everything else has been small. That's it. That's all we get access to. And I don't want to say it's worrying about the future because they did promise that we're not going to see anything smaller and a lot of the maps are going to be larger. But why would they go ahead and waste their own development time to put together a map that's only going to be used for the smaller, rotation of modes without having any other plans to continue this mentality and bring in more smaller maps that are only made for the smaller modes that are designated for that type of stuff? Things like this make me think in the back of my head, were they always expecting players to potentially start moving more towards smaller modes within Battlefield? Are they trying to make the game more competitive? Because they wouldn't just make a map, one map and one map only, because, for no reason. They had to make it because they thought potentially maybe people will actually give the smaller modes more of a shot and play them more frequently. And because so many people are playing them frequently, maybe there should be a map designated to the small modes. It's making me think they have that in the back of their, heads while they're developing Battlefield, which should never happen. That should not be in the back of their heads. They should never be considering this. As I stated in the beginning of this video, their main focus should be on the big modes, what makes Battlefield Battlefield, and then have smaller modes on the side, right? On the side that are there for players who do, want a little bit of a small mode action or are craving that gameplay, because people are always like that. People do enjoy that stuff, but that shouldn't be their main priority. Their main priority should always be the larger stuff. I'm just really hoping that as we progress through Season 1 and we go into Season 2, we start to see a little bit more of a shakeup. I'm starting to not be as worried about maps because I feel like a lot of the maps are going to be larger. They already said they are, and from what I see with Season 1, they definitely are. They're going to be, exactly what the community is asking for. But what about the modes? If the only modes we see throughout all these seasons are small modes for small teams, it's basically pointless. You shouldn't even bother putting it in the game. Barely anybody's going to play it. You might have a handful of people that will hop on and give it a go right when it launches because it's new content. But at the end of the day, guess what everybody's going to go back to? Conquest, Breakthrough, Rush, Escalation. That's where everybody's going to gravitate towards because that is what Battlefield is. So ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, one of my biggest critiques and concerns about Battlefield 6 right now is what their priorities are moving towards the future. I don't want to see them start to heavily prioritize these small modes, and it's making me think that they want to, be a more competitive game. They've tried it 1,000 times in the past, and they always continuously try to make Battlefield competitive and get it into the competitive scene, but it fails every single time, and it fails for a reason. It doesn't fail because the developers are, putting together the competitive modes, not properly. It fails because nobody gives a crap. Nobody logs into Battlefield to say, oh, you know what? I really want to do this competitively. I want to play some comp Battlefield. No. Maybe a handful, but that is not what Battlefield is about, and I really hope that is not the direction they're pushing, because Battlefield should always have, down to its core foundation, a casual mentality, and it should always be revolved around big team battles, all-out warfare, tons of vehicles, tons of randomness, random chaos. That is what this franchise is known for. Not 6v6 small team battle gameplay where there's no vehicles, no insane chaos, just gun-on-gun action, holding flanks, holding rotations, just the same old shit. No. That's not what this franchise is made for. And I hope with seeing that they made a specific map only for small team modes and seeing that all of Season 1 is packed with small modes, I hope after seeing all this, that doesn't confirm this is going to be the direction of Battlefield 6. They need to go back to the drawing board and make sure that big team battle is prioritized and start twisting modes around that stuff. Bring back operations. All this time, they're trying to put together brand new small team modes. They could be literally just trying to combine these maps and bring operations back. Hire a simple, cheap voice actor to, read off some narratives. Nobody really cares. I mean, it could have some backstory, but people just want the vibes of operations, the long fights, progressing through maps and just hours of gameplay. That's all people want. It doesn't have to be that complex. That's the stuff we should be working on, not with, bringing in more small team modes. But, ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. It posts twice here, once at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and a second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, if you guys are interested in my live streams, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If you guys are interested, go link that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you all next one. Peace out.